What up, people? It's True Techno Gamer here, and I just recently did my 2-month overview impressions of PS5. It's been a little bit more than 2 months now. I was pretty behind on doing it, and there was a lot to talk about. Clearly, the video is pretty long as it is, but there still were a couple of big pieces, big topics that I missed. There are three main topics that I wanted to touch on as part of like a part two to the PS5 review. The first is, what are the issues? What are the problems? What are the cons right now? I didn't really spend time really highlighting that, so I will do that here. The second is I want to talk a little bit more about the audio, specifically about the actual Tempest 3D audio. I did try it with headphones, just kind of some headphones that I had. I don't have the Sony Pulse 3D headphones, which are supposedly designed around it. But Tempest works with any headphones, and so I just tried it, and I'll give my kind of impressions on that. And the third is a little bit more about backwards compatibility, and not really like reviewing and talking about like backwards compatibility itself, but I just kind of want to talk about like how this system works and functions given that it has backwards compatibility. There's some pros and cons to it, and some aspects about it that are pretty confusing, honestly. So I'll touch on that, and just from a user standpoint. So for the first topic, what are the cons? I mentioned that the PS5 wasn't perfect. Of course it's not. It's still early days. I still overall love it. I said I would give it like a 9 to a 9.5 out of 10. But the biggest issue with the PS5 right now easily is the actual storage capacity of the hard drive, of the SSD drive. For those that don't know, PS5 comes with a custom SSD that is super fast and enables data to really flow through the system really fast, shorten load times, etc. And when you actually get your PS5, open it up out the box, turn it on, you'll see that you only have, I think the exact number is 667 gigabytes of space. In today's world, where most games are digitally distributed and everything has to be installed on a hard drive, I'll get to that, and you have games like Call of Duty and Destiny easily topping 100 gigabytes, 120 gigabytes. So that's 667 gigabytes. You kind of can see that literally depends on which kind of games you have, but that could easily just be 5 to 10 games tops. Okay, and then you're done. And that space, that hard drive was full day 3 for me. Day 3, it was full to the point where I could not download a demo. Now remember what I said in my previous video, I actually got like a good 5 or 6 games at launch, right? So all of those games installed, and then I had Ghost of Tsushima for PS4. I initially installed it on the PS4 hard drive, and that was it. NBA 2K, Assassin's Creed, Call of Duty, full, Astro's already on there. That was it. So when Destiny 2 update was coming out, I had no room to download it. That came out a few weeks later. I already had to like kind of clear stuff up. So I had to move Ghost of Tsushima to my external hard drive. So I'll talk about that. But the storage capacity is limited. And, to the point where it's motivation and it's like almost pressure. I'm like, I gotta finish these games so I can clear them out. Because if there's anything new that I want to buy, I don't have room for it. And I gotta really figure, like, I'm still playing this game. Do I want to delete it? And then it's really, something that you shouldn't have to worry about with a system like this in 2020, 2021. But we do now. Now, the reason why we have to worry about that, let's be clear, is because the storage solutions are limited from Sony. First of all, a PS5 game must be installed on the internal SSD drive in order to function. Okay? That's a difference. And back in the PS4 world and in the Xbox One world, you can store games on the hard drive. If the hard drive internally was full, you can just get an external hard drive, an external USB hard drive, and you can actually store your games on there and run your games from there, right? Well, you can't do that with the PS5, right? So that's why this is a problem, right? So if it's a PS5 native game, a game that is actually designed for PS5 natively, it has to be installed on the SSD. And that's because if it's using like PS5 native APIs, it needs access to that actual custom SSD to really function. And developers need to know that that's there, right? There's no external hard drive right now on the market that can replicate the performance of that internal SSD drive from Sony. So it has to be on the internal drive. That's number one. That's limiting. And in turn with that, you cannot, store your PS5 games on an external hard drive. You can't even store them on an external hard drive. Not regardless of playing the game from the external hard drive, you can't store them. So it just creates this huge bottleneck, and that's where the issue comes in. So the way to make this work, and also remember, the PS5 is backwards compatible, fully backwards compatible. So most people, that come in that had a PS4 have a lot of PS4 games that they still probably play or would want to play. And again, there's some games that are PS4 native games that run better and run enhanced when played on the PS5, right? So there's plenty of PS4 games you want to play. You almost certainly won't have room to put them on the internal hard drive if you actually have some PS5 games. So where does that go? Well, you can store native PS4 games on an external hard drive and run them from an external hard drive, right? So the way I have mine set up is internal hard drive, all PS5, and then I have an external 1 terabyte hard drive. I'm not playing that much PS4 game, but that's a good chunk to have a good set of games for PS4 that I still may want to go back to. So I have those stored on an external hard drive connected to the system. And it works pretty well, but you got to keep them distinct right now. The solution to this ultimately is one of two things. Sony needs to eventually allow users, as they did with the PS3 and the PS4, allow users to actually upgrade the internal hard drive. You cannot change that external hard drive, again, because there is no commercial hard drive on the market, no commercial SSD on the market that can replicate all of the performance that the PS5 SSD brings. Not yet. Sony's saying that at some point it will, and they're going through like a certification process where they'll have these, certified to work with PS5 type drives soon-ish. Probably, hopefully by the end of this year, 2021, we'll start seeing some hard drives on the market that people can buy. They're going to be stupid expensive. They're going to be like $300, $400 when they first come out, just because SSDs are, and bleeding edge performance SSDs are definitely going to be super expensive, almost the price of the system. So it probably won't be very viable for a couple more years, potentially. But that's the situation we're in. So it is definitely a bottleneck. Hopefully, Sony addresses this soon. So I said one of two ways. So that way, internal hard drive replacement. The second way is allowing PS5 games to run off an external hard drive. Same issue. There's no external hard drive with the performance. So eventually there will be, and once that happens, hopefully Sony will allow that as well. We'll see. But the storage is an issue. It's not a breaking issue. You can get around it. You can delete games, and you just have to manage it. But it is annoying because there are, just like I see a demo. I remember when the Resident Evil Maiden demo first came out. I was like, oh cool, let me down. Oh no, I gotta free up some space. That's always a thing. Everybody know how when you run out of space in your phone or your heart or your computer, same deal. But it's like always out of space. You're constantly having to manage that. Annoying. So that's definitely a con, but it's not a deal breaker. But it's definitely a con. Number two I wanted to talk about was the Tempest 3D audio. I want to say a little bit more about this. So just so you guys know, I talked about the PS5 audio from the sound card, the actual sound processor in the system being so much better than the PS4, which it is. And everything you play on the PS5, everything sounds better than it did on the PS4 because that processor is so much more advanced. It just processes data better and everything comes out better. So even playing PS4 games sounds crisper than it did on the PS4. Watching Netflix and stuff also sounds better. And then, of course, PS5 games. So that part is definitely true. I appreciate that. So what is Tempest 3D? Well, Tempest 3D is Sony's proprietary 3D audio format that they're really trying to push and pioneer in the PS5 to allow for, fully dynamic, real-time 3D sound, audio, right? Now, this is something akin to Dolby Atmos, for people familiar with that, or DTSX, probably less familiar with that, same deal. It's 3D sound, so you can hear sound left, right, front, and then also above you as well. You kind of get a 3D space. There's a sense of height, right? That's all great. There's a lot of other 3D sound formats out there already. Dolby Atmos is one, DTSX is another. On the PC side, Microsoft has their own 3D format called Windows Sonic, and then the Xbox has all three of those. It has support for Atmos, DTSX, and Windows Sonic. PS5 doesn't have support for any of that. Instead, Sony chose to build their own new Tempest 3D audio format. There's a lot of debate about this going on in terms of what this impact will actually be and what the value really is. So let me try to clear it up, and I'll give you my take real quick. On the one hand, some people are saying, well, Tempest 3D is just it's silly. There's already a bunch of 3D formats. They all basically do the same thing. It's nothing new. Sony's presenting this as like a real differentiator for PS5 and something that they're trying to do that is new. To people's point about that, yes and no. That's true, but not completely true. There are some things that Sony is doing different. So underneath the hood and like at the foundation level, what Sony is attempting to do is to really bring binaural audio to gaming, which is fairly new. Now, there's a lot of 3D audio formats. I just named some. And in the past, people, we used to have, creative blaster cards that had 3D audio back in 2004. Yeah, right. It listed and marketed 3D audio, but it was just basically some software trying to mimic. It was nowhere near as sophisticated or as defined. And it wasn't something that you could actually build into the game end to end. It was purely just some algorithm that would be running to simulate and create some matrix process sound. It was crap, a lot of that stuff. So people that say that, that's not what we're living at today with Atmos and, even Windows Sonic and, spatial audio. It's different. This is pretty much akin to like Dolby Atmos and DTS, especially for headphones. But binaural audio is the idea of really trying to record and replicate the sensation of sound hitting both, your ears. The sound is recorded as such, where there's like microphones in your ears. So it can actually pick up, exact location relative to your ears and where things should be and how it should sound, etc. They're trying to replicate that with PS5. And that's why the Tempest audio engine is something that's relatively advanced. It has a lot of processing because it needs to process a lot of information to try to do that. When you turn on the PS5, you actually have to select the sound profile. And the idea for that is to try to get close as possible to matching how your ears ultimately would hear. And if you pick the wrong one, it does sound different, right? So they are trying to go a little bit further with this and bring in 3D audio to the masses, I guess, for gaming. Now, Tempest audio only technically works with headphones. You have that headphones. The reason for that is what I just said. That sensation of like having a microphone in your ears, as you can imagine, the best way to replicate that and distribute that is in headphones. It's kind of hard to do with a TV or a sound bar or even like a high-end, home theater or like Dolby Atmos surround system. Sony is planning to do that. They're planning to make Tempest processing available for folks that have a sound bar and have surround system already. But it's a much, much harder thing to do, so it's going to come later. It's going to take time. Right now, it's only headphones. Okay, so if you have a PS5, you have to have. Now you have any pair of headphones. It can work with any pair of headphones. Sony has the Pulse 3D headphones that they say are designed to, optimize the 3D audio experience, let's say, but it works with anything. And that's kind of the beauty in what Sony's trying to do. This 3D audio sensation can be replicated with any pair of headphones, and eventually it would be replicated with any TV speakers and any soundbar and, just anything. It's all processing, right? Why not Atmos? Sony's trying to avoid Dolby's licensing fee. I think is really what it comes down to. They didn't have Atmos on PS4 either. It is a disappointment. The main reason is because Atmos is the industry standard. The consumer electronics world, the processors, the receivers, TVs, soundbars, Netflix, all of the apps, they all have Dolby Atmos support. Atmos is the standard. So why would you have a cutting-edge, state-of-the-art console that doesn't support the latest standard? That's where it comes in. I have a Dolby Atmos processor and a Dolby Atmos sound system. I would love to be able to just plug that in and get that 3D sound that way as well, for example. But Sony doesn't want to have to pay Dolby for licensing, so they didn't do it on PS4, and they still didn't do it on PS5, but they said, we'll do something better. That's kind of what they're getting at. So, is it better? In my experience, here's the thing. I tried it with just my pair of like noise canceling headphones that I have. Pretty, it's like what I use for like audio when I would like be traveling and stuff back in the day. It's a pretty good pair of headphones. The Plantronics, I forget the exact number. So I just tried it with that, and my impression was it sounded good. It sounded on par with like Windows Sonic for headphones and Dolby Atmos for headphones and DTS-X for headphones. I've heard all of those things on PC, and it sounds on par. It doesn't sound dramatically less than that. But for my dollar, it does not top the experience as it is today without Tempest 3D audio capability. It doesn't top the experience of just playing a game on a high-end surround setup, right? When I play games on there, I get a lot of that separation, a lot of that detail, a lot of that crispness, and a lot of the 3D sensation already, with my surround system, right? But having it all in space, being able to crank that up, that still sounded better to me. I would not prefer to play on headphones, even with the Tempest enabled, than to do that. That's my take. In theory, right, the ultimate experience should be through the headphones, right? Because again, it's close to your ear, it's easier to manipulate because where your ears are. When you have a surround system in a room, the room is its own animal, right? The room messes up a lot of the sound. It causes a lot of distortion and stuff. Sound gets reflected and absorbed, and it's always hard to get an optimal experience in a larger space, right? In a larger room. So that should be the case, but for me it wasn't. So I'm just letting you guys know it is cool that it's there. I think we're going to see a lot more on Tempest 3D audio. A lot more games are going to support it. They're going to start opening up the compatibility. They're going to enhance it as well and make it a little bit more flexible. It's going to be cool to see what they do with that. I'm just happy that Sony is pushing the audio forward. So the third and final thing that I wanted to touch on about the PS5 is pertaining to the backwards compatibility and just how that works, because it is somewhat different now than it ever has been in the past. So PS5 is not the first system to have backwards compatibility. We get that PS2 had backwards compatibility with PS1. The difference now is that we're in a world where most games are digital. When it was all retail and disc based, if you had a PS2 or a PS3 and you wanted to play a PS2 game, you knew good and well what game was PS2, what game was PS3, because you had a physical box. It had a label. It said PS2 and PS3 on it. The disc itself actually said PS2, PS3 on it, so you knew what was what. In the world of digital, it can get really confusing. When you go to the PlayStation Store, for example, and you want to download Dirt 5, Destiny 2, Hitman 3, whatever, right, the multi-platform game is, how do you know which one you're getting, which version you're getting? How do you actually specify which version you want to get or not? Well, today, that whole process is pretty ugly, and it's not entirely clear. So PS5 supports pretty much everything about the PS4, right? If you have your PS4 library, you can disc or digital, you can still play them on the PS5. Many of them will run better and be enhanced on the PS5, so that's just a free bonus. That's great. All the accessories, all of the controllers, PS4 controllers work on PS5, so you can still play your PS4 games with the PS4 controller if you wanted to. I don't know why you would. The DualSense is way better. But you cannot play PS5 games with the DualShock 4 controller. Just keep that in mind. And then, even the camera, the PS4 camera still works. This is important or cool because for VR, if you have PlayStation VR, which was kind of built around the PS4, if you wanted to play, by the way, PlayStation VR still works in the PS5, but in order to do so, it needs to work on that camera. There's an adapter that you can get for free. Tony will send it to you. They send it to me for free, and you can use that, and it will work fine. It works seamlessly. It's built into the PS5 operating system. It recognizes it. It says, hey, this is your PlayStation camera for PS4. So it's kind of redundant. Frankly, it's redundant to have a PS4 if you have a PS5. Everything works. But it is confusing. So, again, my library, when I'm sitting on my PS5 and I'm looking at the dashboard, it's a mix of games, some of which are PS5 only, not many. Some of which are both cross-gen, meaning that there's a PS4 and a PS5 version, and some of which are only PS4. And all of that is there together. And so, when you're looking through it, you actually have to click on the options a lot of times to really sometimes see which version is this. Did I get the right version? If you go to the store try to download a version, it can be really confusing. And initially, there was a whole bunch of stories of people, for example, trying to play Call of Duty Black Ops, a Cold War, for example, right, at launch. And they would go to download it and not knowing that they're actually getting the PS4 version. It was actually like a bug kind of in the setup there. And they would just download it and be like, okay, I got it. And they would be playing the game, and they're playing the PS4 version and not even know. And they're like, man, it doesn't look that much different, it doesn't feel that much different. they were playing the PS4 version and did not know it until they went on Reddit or somewhere, and somebody told them like, oh, make sure you don't do this, and they're like, oh, and they went and checked, because you have to go and click on the options. You can see which version is actually of the game is installed, and they're like, oh crap, this is the PS4. I need to go download the PS5. It's another problem with some games. When you just go to download, it actually downloads both versions, the PS4 and the PS5. Let's go back to my first point, storage. Right? If you try to grab a game like Destiny and it try to grab both versions, you're downloading like 140 gigs or something crazy like that, right? So it's just something to be aware of. It's like, it's weird. The PS5 is kind of like a PS4 Plus in a way. It's like a PS4 and a PS5. There's not a whole lot of PS5 specific games now, but we're in an era where there's a lot of cross-gen titles, a lot of games that are coming out with both versions. In some cases, only PS4 version, but it still works on the PS5. In some cases, it works better on the PS5. They're doing like patches specifically for PS5, but they're not full-on PS5 games. It's a lot, and it's confusing. So that's it. PS5, 2 months in. Looking forward to the future. Tons of great games coming up, and that's really what it's all about. So great job, Sony. Like, subscribe, comment, please, on the channel. I appreciate your support. Till next time.